This is Open Parley Live. 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 This is Open Parley Live.
Hello and a warm welcome to Open Parley Live here on Open Parley. My name is Lynette Manzini. Thank you very much for joining us. In today's conversation, I'm joined by the CCC, that's the Citizens Coalition for Change, spokesperson, Promise Mkwananzi. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm super excited to having you in the studio because we once had a false start a few months ago.
Some hiccups.
Yes, but I mean, the conversation must go on. A lot has been happening in the CCC, but I want to take us back. We are in September, but I want to take us back early this year when Nelson Chamisa left the party. But before we do that, there's something we want to address. There's obviously factions. There are factions in the CCC now. Which one do you belong to? I want to, to make it clear for the viewers as we begin this
There are no factions. There are no factions in the CCC. There is one CCC, which was founded and led by Advocate Nelson Chamisa. Mm-hmm. And that remains the case. The leaders of that CCC, other than Nelson Chamisa himself, are known. The organizing secretary is known. The spokesperson, from Mahere to myself, they are known. And any other relevant office is known in the CCC. And that has not changed at all. There may be people that have opted out of the party or that have chosen to do other things. But there is a singular Citizens Coalition for Change that was founded and led by Advocate Nelson Chamisa before his resignation, and it remains intact.
It remains intact. I think it's important for us to have this conversation because online you see that there's a Welshman Mure, a faction. I'm calling it a faction because that's what I see, and we also see the acting President Jameson Timber as well. So is Jameson Timber the one acting? Is he the leader of the CCC at the moment?
Senator Jameson Timber is the head of the Administrative Bureau, which is the organ that was put in place soon after the resignation of Advocate Nelson Chamisa to superintend over the affairs of the party, to think about what needed to be done and also how to move forward from that point on.
And you're obviously still the spokesperson. I want us to move on to MPs. When Nelson Chamisa resigned, there were some MPs who, also resigned in solidarity with Nelson Chamisa, and some remained in Parliament. And I remember you held a press conference where you were saying that you have deployed the MPs to continue working. Are all the MPs that are in Parliament your members?
Well, what is for sure is that they were all elected under our ticket. under the ticket of Advocate Nelson Chamisa. That has not changed. And as far as we know, if the law were to be followed in the proper sense of the law, they are not able to depart from that ticket unless they also have to leave the seat. Because when you're elected under a particular political party, you must, remain within that party. And if you leave, then your seat obviously becomes vacant. And that particular party that sponsored you then has to make a replacement. But obviously we are operating in an environment where the rule of law is not respected. And you saw the likes of Chabangu jumping in, claiming to be Triple C, claiming to be this and that. But all that is fraud. And that fraud is initiated obviously and driven by Mr. Mnangagwa and his ZANU-PF for agendas that we all know, one of which was to try and achieve 2/3 majority through the back door. So those are unlawful things. But in terms of the law, in terms of the constitution, all Triple C deployees, not just MPs by the way, but also senators, yes, as well as councillors, were elected under the ticket of the Triple C as led by Advocate Nelson Chamisa.
And do you still have, like the power? Are you still in control as the Triple C that, they were elected under your Triple C? But do you believe that you're still in power? I know you speak about the illegalities of Chabango, but do you feel like you're still in power? Do you still have the grip on this particular power?
On what exactly?
In terms of the MPs, okay, can you whip these MPs? Do they still listen to you? Yes, they were voted under Nelson Chamisa, but do you still have control as a party?
Well, obviously there are some that have gone rogue. There are some that have gone errant. There are some that have prioritized their personal interests ahead of the party, ahead of the principles that that drove the campaign. We campaigned on the basis of transforming this country, and we are still on that route of transformation. So if somebody deviates from that route, which has become commonplace because of the economic situation and also the livelihood issues, some have considered that more than the journey that we are on. But to tell you what, it doesn't matter. What matters is that the leadership of the party, as well as the leadership of Advocate Nelson Chamisa, remains in place. And not necessarily within the party, but the generality of the citizenry of the country. And we remain in our position that the elections did not go and did not president. We have not changed. We remain in that path. And all our MPs who are still with us understand that position. And that is very important. We continue to against the regime in place. And our MPs, our councillors focused on that principle. Those who choose otherwise, them only time will tell how it will end.
It's interesting that you brought up the issue of Sengezo Chabango, and he was named the leader of opposition. We heard there were issues around the political party finances. I want us to go back to, there was a Twitter space that was held a couple of weeks ago where the likes of Jacob Mafume, Charlton Wende, Caston Mateo attended this Twitter space, and they said that they knew Chabango and that he was not an imposter. So my question is, did you deceive us as Triple C? Because now these gentlemen who are associated with your party are saying that they knew him, that he was within the party structures, but the party lied.
As what? First and foremost, the party had no structures, you know that. And we did not have the position of Secretary General. We still don't have it. So I don't know, he was in the party in what capacity? If he was a supporter, that's something else. But in terms of the leadership of the party, he was not part of the leadership of the party. He's never been part of the leadership of the Triple C as it was constituted in January 2022. He's never been a party to that leadership, and he's not part of that. And any colleague who wants to mislead the nation that Chabango was a member or an integral party to the leadership is a liar.
So they are deceiving us. I think it would have been prudent for me to bring you and them here, and then we could iron it out here in the studio. I also want us to look at the issue of SADC. SADC summit was held here in Zimbabwe, 17th of August. And before that, your party had disputed the elections, like you highlighted. Not any other election, but the presidential elections. And you did not choose the legal route this time around. You decided, no, you're not going to the courts, but you're going to use the diplomatic route. You're going to use, approach SADC. There was, momentum around, okay, SADC is being held here in Zimbabwe, and this is what you're going to do. But this was before Nelson Chamisa left. What happened after he left until SADC, the SADC summit? What happened then? Did we manage to get interaction with the SADC leaders?
Yes, we continued to engage SADC in the hope that obviously SADC had produced a report of its own at their own volition. They produced the damning report on the electoral process and outcome in Zimbabwe. And naturally, we expected that SADC would live up to its report, not our report, their report, which said that the elections had not gone in accordance with their minimum requirements for free and fair elections, according to SADC protocols. And we're surprised that SADC then pretended that the elections had gone according to plan. And I mean, that it's an indictment on SADC, on the credibility of SADC as an institution and an organization that the people of Southern Africa look up to, as an overarching structure that should be able to monitor and at least, constrain excessive behaviors by member states. SADC found itself wanting, and I think that the credibility of SADC was compromised in that regard, which is very pitiful. But also what I want to say is that we, in addition to SADC, we also have a political program that we unveiled to continue to delegitimize an illegitimate government. We have not stopped. We have not stopped about talking about the illegitimacy. We have not stopped demanding that there be electoral reforms and that there be a fresh election in this country, because the election that was undertaken was roundly condemned, not just by SADC, by the way, by the generality of the internal and external observers that observed that election, including some organizations that were accredited to do parallel voter tabulation, who were arrested and their equipment confiscated. So all that, I cannot belabor Zimbabweans. They know what happened. But what is important is that we must remain steadfast in insisting that we must have a proper election in Zimbabwe. It doesn't matter how long it takes. What is
even if it takes us until 2028?
What we should not do is to continue to sweep this matter under the carpet. We've done that in 2000, in 2005, in 2002. Now we're in 2024. These guys, they continue to get away with the flawed and irregular elections, and nothing is done. They just hope that in time we'll just let it go. And they continue. We're going to the next election, and they continue to steal elections, to steal the hope of the people of Zimbabwe, to deny Zimbabweans their right to choose, the right of choice, to choose leaders of their choice, which, by the way, was one of the cornerstones of the very liberation struggle that they claim to be champions of. So we're not going to let that go. We are going to continue to fight that the next election that will be held in Zimbabwe is going to be an election that will be held under free and fair conditions, and that whose outcome should not be disputed.
And how do you intend to do this, a promise? The political action, you said you're demanding the reforms. Where are you demanding these reforms, and where are you making this noise? Where are you continuing, singing this song that these elections were? Because after Nelson Chamisa left, Triple C is kind of quiet.
No, we're not quiet. I don't know if we're following events in the lead up to the SADC summit. We had hundreds of our members arrested across the country. It was for a reason, because these were people who were peacefully and lawfully organizing themselves to say to SADC, but you guys, you say these elections did not go well, but you're coming here as if nothing happened. And the only way the regime responded is how the way they know how, which is to arrest people. And all those arrests that have taken place, some have been granted bail, some remain in custody, including Senator Jameson Timber and others, is in itself some form of political action, which shows that people were organizing themselves in terms of the Constitution. There is no insurgency. There is no insurrection of any sort, as falsely claimed by the regime. These are citizens who are exercising their democratic right to say, but this election didn't go well. What are we going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? And they are arrested. So it would be unfair to say that nothing has been happening or that we have been quiet. There has been a severe clampdown on human rights defenders, on opposition activists for a reason, because the people are not quiet. The people are speaking. And we continue to encourage citizens to speak out, to speak truth to power, not just in terms of this election, but many other matters that bedevil this country, including corruption, including an aspiration to one-party state that we see being some maneuvers being done towards that direction. And it is every citizen's responsibility to ensure that this country does not go that way. Recently, I learned that they want to ban unleaded petrol. What for? Why should Zimbabweans not have the choice to choose what they want? Put out your fuel out there. Let unleaded fuel be out there. And let people choose what they want. And this tendency to deny Zimbabweans the right of choice it must be challenged by all right-thinking Zimbabweans.
And, the arrest you talk about, I mean, Senator Timber was arrested end of June.
Yes.
And he's still in custody with 70 others.
78
others. And to what extent did this affect the morale of the party? And on top of that, the other activists who were then arrested, towards, during SADC. To what extent did this affect, the morale within the party? Because, freedom of expression is very important, when it comes to airing out your views. But then you're saying that your members were being arrested. How did this affect the party in any way?
Obviously, it does affect not just the party, it affects the country. It affects the citizens. It affects the reputation of the country. It affects everything. Where citizens are just arrested for, in the case of Senator Timber and the 78 others, they were congregated at a private space at Senator Timber's homestead, celebrating a well-known Day of the African Child, which is celebrated the world over because of the circumstances that day was brought about. And but those are some of the occupational hazards of the struggle. We continue to strive. Our cadres and our citizens are resilient in demanding what is rightfully theirs, which is the right to choose and the right to self-determination, which has been curtailed by Mr. Mnangagwa and his group.
And what can you say about the way the case is being handled in the courts?
Well, I mean, I'm sorry to say, but you saw Mr. Mkwananzi bragging that they are in control of the courts. He's a senior government official or party spokesperson of the ruling party, and he's out there saying those remarks that show or prove that they have captured the courts and they misuse the courts to punish those who disagree with them. And that puts the court in a very compromised position. If I were a judge or a magistrate, I would clearly not be happy with Mr. Mkwananzi's remarks. For my own personal integrity as a person and my legacy as a professional citizen in Zimbabwe. And we have said that I think that the remarks by Mr. Mkwananzi were very unfortunate. Though telling of the situation in our country, for him to come out there and have the guts to brag about it, I mean, this is the least you can expect. You'd expect that maybe they can play around and try to hide. But here are people with no shame. And the net effect of it is that how do citizens continue to retain confidence in the justice system? Because the justice system is the last arbiter. If we are aggrieved, if I am aggrieved, we expect that the court will strike justice between us. And if the court is captured by one component of society, a minority at that, and a political entity, political entities have political interests, and political interests can be very dangerous if they are not regulated by an objective and credible judiciary system. And that is what we're having in Zimbabwe. And you can see from the cases, Mr. Mkwananzi said the people will be released, and the people are starting to be released. We're happy that the people are being released, but the underlying concern about the capture of the courts by the ruling ZANU-PF party, in particular these Mkwananzi and others, is very concerning.
How would you think you would deal with this as the opposition? Because it's something that you need to deal with. You're saying you want a fresh election.
Yes.
But even if you get this fresh election and you've got disputes, you still can't trust the courts. How will you deal, in this particular situation?
What is needed in Zimbabwe, my sister, is a dialogue. All the things that we are doing, all the mobilization that is being done, must lead to a dialogue process. A dialogue that will bring together Advocate Nelson Chamisa, Mr. Mnangagwa, and all other critical stakeholders in the country, the churches, the media, business community, civil society, other political parties, together to say it cannot go on like this. We need this country to be on the right path. Many African countries are turning in the right direction, and Zimbabwe is going the opposite direction. And we need to fix this. And the dialogue process is necessary with clear terms of reference of reforms and transformation. We must reform our institutions. In particular, we must transform our political culture. I think that on paper, we've got fairly, good institutions. If you read our constitution, it's one of the best. But what we lack is a political culture of complying and actualizing our constitution and respecting the very laws that we author for ourselves as citizens. And that will need all Zimbabweans to come together and put a stop to the impunity and immunity that Mr. Mnangagwa and his ZANU-PF and the lawlessness that they continue to exert on this country. This country will not operate without the rule of law. They can try to do this and do that, but the lack of confidence in the economy and in Zimbabwe as an investment, a destination investment, is solely and mainly based on the lack of confidence in the justice system. If I'm coming here with my money, I must be sure that if I'm in a dispute with government or whoever in Zimbabwe, the justice system will operate properly.
So in case you're just joining us, you are tuned into Open Pali Live here on Open Pali. My name is Lynette Manzini, and joining me here in the studio is the CCC, that's the Citizens Coalition for Change spokesperson, Promise Mkwananzi, and he's just talking to us about, the future of Zimbabwe, talking about the CCC, and he insists that Zimbabweans need to come together. We need to dialogue. The relevant stakeholders need to dialogue to find a way forward. I like the way that you spoke about changing our political culture, and the good thing about culture is it's dynamic. You continue to learn and improve culture, and I hope that these stakeholders are listening. But now I want to talk about the dialogue, which is something that is important. Other people have spoken about these dialogues, and you say we need to have terms of reference. Who's going to set up these terms of reference? Who's going to call? Is it the church that is going to bring everybody together? I'm asking this question because there was an outfit, I think that was Poland, where President Emerson Mnangagwa brought in losing presidential candidates and said they would talk about reforms and all that. But, Advocate Nelson Chamisa didn't want to be a part of that. Yes. How would this particular dialogue work? Who is going to initiate it?
Well, it doesn't matter who initiates it. It could be the leaders. It could be SADC. It could be the church. What is important are the tenets and the principles of the framework of dialogue. If the dialogue is exclusive, or if the dialogue is fundamentally tilted in favor of somebody else, it's not dialogue. Yeah, like the poll that you speak about, it was unlawful. It was, created by Mr. Mnangagwa under his own terms, and you had to come under his terms. And that is not the dialogue we seek. And in any case, in our view, neither Mr. Mnangagwa or Advocate Nelson Chamisa can convene the dialogue, because they are, the parties in dispute. Somebody else ought to do that. Ideally, SADC would have done that and bring the two together, because the dispute is centered primarily on these two presidential contenders. Some, yes, here and there, but the actual dispute is pitted between Advocate Nelson Chamisa and Mr. Mnangagwa as two presidential candidates who both claim to have won the elections. And neither of them can then be convened that dialogue, if you understand. And that was the problem with Pollard, in addition to the unlawfulness of its creation. So we are saying either SADC or the church can create a neutral platform, and there could be some convener who both parties can entrust to be objective and bring the two together. And once the modalities are set between those two, the rest of the stakeholders can come in, and a clear roadmap. I mean, the roadmap to the Zimbabwe that we want is well known. We need a rule of law system that is functional, that is objective, that views everybody as uniform and equal, and that is fair to everybody. We need to see the reforms that are needed, not just the political reforms. There's a lot of focus on the political, because everything follows the political. But there are also social reforms that are required. There are also economic reforms that are required. There is also cultural transformation that I spoke about. As a people, we must dump the culture of impunity, the culture of corruption, the culture of unaccountability, and adopt a new culture as a country and as a people of accountability, of being law-abiding citizens, even on small matters. And it's not just in government, it's a whole issue that needs to be resolved, but it starts from the top.
It starts from the top.
Yes.
And what are the grassroots saying? Because, if we would like to look at the grassroots themselves, majority of the time they're at the receiving ends of these suggestions. It's almost sort of like a top-down approach.
Yes.
What are the grassroots suggesting? What solutions are they proffering? Are you also listening to them?
Yes. You raise a very interesting question. Many people, they focus on what the elites are saying. That's one has said this big name has said this, and so on and so forth. And they lose sight of the position of the grassroots. I'm happy to say that Advocate Nelson Chamisa and all those that support him have not lost sight of the position of the grassroots, which is why sometimes you see our position is at cross purposes with some of the elites who want to, establish elite pacts and agree based on their own interests. That's not what we're looking for. We are looking at ensuring that the ordinary citizen remains at the center of our political program. A villager in Lotito, in Gondoma, in Senges, that is the person that we represent. And those people, they don't care about land cruisers or seats in parliament and all these perks that we hear people getting. They care about their daily livelihood. They care about their children going to school. And that can only be achieved if the country is set on a proper foundation to prosperity.
I want to talk about your cabinet, your shadow cabinet.
Yes.
You announced your shadow cabinet as the Triple C. Where are they working? We don't see them.
Well, first and foremost, you know that the Speaker of Parliament rejected them. So their effectiveness was, problematic. Unlawfully as well. The rejection is just, a continuation of the unlawfulness of Chabang and others. But they are working. We work with them. You can even bring them on board here, our Minister of Finance or Shadow Minister of that, to talk to them about our policies as a political party. But the point is that the Speaker refused to recognize them. And that's just a ZANU-PF partisan inclination on the Triple C, the real Triple C that won the elections. And they have a bone to chew with Advocate Nelson Chamisa. They have a bone to chew with anybody that supports or subscribes to the vision of Advocate Nelson Chamisa and the Triple C. So it's expected, but at the end of the day, it exposes them for who they are. they pretend to want democracy when they don't want democracy. And we have challenged Mr. Mnangagwa, we have challenged ZANU-PF, say, if you want, can you come out in the open? So we want a one-party state. Triple C is banned, opposition is banned. Then we know. Then we take it from there. But they've refused to formally state that. They want to pretend that there's multi-party democracy. They want to pretend that there are elections. They rig elections and produce their own figures, but still go on to undermine the very fictitious figures that ZEC announced. Our MPs were elected. ZEC said this one is the one who has been elected. But they went ahead and removed that one, and they put the one they want.
There is a school of thought that suggests that if we're still having these problems, an unfair operating environment for the opposition,
Yes.
then maybe we should, abandon elections and first ensure that we have a proper playing field.
Yes.
What is your response to that?
It's a good option. It's like I said earlier on, that for so many decades, we have allowed this grand theft to be slid under the carpet. And we're saying this time we're not going to have it, starting from now. If we accept or we let the 2023 election fraud slide, then we might as well forget about 2028. We must demonstrate to these guys that we're not going to tolerate that. We're not going to accept that by ensuring and insisting on not accepting and not letting go of the theft of 2023.
I hear your argument, and it makes a lot of sense. Let's forge forward in regards to this fight. But doesn't this demobilize the people who supported Nelson Chamisa, because you are still fighting for this election, but he has left the party? He was running as president, sponsored by Triple C. Is he still fighting for these results as a Triple C? What exactly is going on? Because it's becoming very confusing.
Well, what I want to say is that Advocate Nelson Chamisa left the Triple C, but did not leave politics and did not abandon the voters and the citizens, and continues the fight for free and fair elections in Zimbabwe. In that space that he is in.
Still contesting the results?
Absolutely. He is the candidate, remains the candidate, isn't it? The presidential candidate that was robbed. That doesn't change, and he continues to fight in that regard. The party is just a party. The main thing is the fight, and the fight can be fought from anywhere. You remember, Lynette, that it took Advocate Nelson Chamisa less than 20 minutes to announce the formation of the Triple C. And there we went, took off, and it went. So the party is just, a banner for getting into elections and doing this. But what is important is the relationship between Advocate Nelson Chamisa and the citizens, and the leaders that support a genuine and authentic alternative in Zimbabwe. And the people of Zimbabwe know their leaders. It doesn't matter where they go. They know who their leaders are. And they have no confusion. It's just that...
I'm the one who's confused. They know.
No, I know also you're not confused. But many people think that the citizens, the Zimbabweans, they are 98% literate. They follow the politics. They know exactly what's happening. If you put a ballot today, they will demonstrate that clarity in terms of understanding the political dynamics. So let's not worry much. We'll continue to educate and inform and update the citizens. But it's just to bolster what they already know. They know that Advocate Nelson Chamisa is the leader of the alternative in Zimbabwe, is the authentic and genuine leader that they want to see, and who has the capability to transform Zimbabwe into a prosperous society.
Okay,
that has not changed.
I want us to move on to the recent developments.
Yes.
So the award-winning investigative journalist Hope Chingono was on a Twitter space recently, and he was talking about. Initially, it was called the government in exile, but then they said that the name doesn't matter. They can call it Zimbabwe Economic Forum or something like that. What are your thoughts about this vehicle?
Well, I haven't applied myself much, but I mean, Hopewell is a Zimbabwean citizen and has every right under the laws of Zimbabwe to do what he wants to do, as long as it is within the orbit of the law. And if he suggests that he wants to form, whether it's a government or a political party, it is up to him. What is important, in our view, is that to form a political party is very easy. Right now, I mean, are we here? 1, 2, 3, 4. We can form a party right now. Yeah, the president and the secretary has this. But where are the people in all this? You know, that's where many of these political elites miss it. You know, it's not about forming. It's about, you know, getting understood and creating and establishing a relationship with the people. That's a political party. That's why I said earlier on that it doesn't matter the triple C or whatever. What matters is the symbiotic relationship between the leaders and the citizens. And this is not new. If you, paradoxically, if you ask those in Mzanu, the Mchangwas, the Mnangagwas and others, so many of their political parties were banned, and they changed them as they went. They were mutating politically, you know, to suit the circumstances that they were facing. But the people never lost sight of who their leaders are. It's the same, you know, scenario. People know, okay, Advocate Chamisa has left the party, where is he? They follow, and so on and so forth. So, Hopewell can go ahead. I don't even know where he is, whether he's in Zimbabwe, wherever he is. He can go ahead and form. If it is the support of the people of Zimbabwe, it doesn't matter who does it. What matters is that the wrongs and the ills in our society are corrected. Yeah.
And moving on, the Triple C councillors were, I want to say, caught attending, because it was kind of abnormal for us to find out that councillors from the opposition attended the ZANU-PF Herbert Shebo School of Ideology. And, you know, initially the news that was coming out of there was that it was a local government workshop. But then we saw the certificates, and this changed the ball game altogether.
Yes. So, you know, our councillors approached us as the leadership. This is the situation. And they were back and forth with the leadership. And they came back and said, no, we've spoken to the minister through UCAS. Excuse me. The program has been changed. It's now a local government program. And
so initially it was about the school?
So we're told. We are not directly involved. We just get reports as leadership of the party. These are our deployees, by the way. So we said, okay, fine. If that's the case, it's fine. The report says that upon arriving there, they discovered that the program had not changed. Or, you know, they just copy-pasted a few things, you know, but the essence of the program remained as ZANU-PF ideological regurgitation. And we took them to task. If you get there, okay, you've been misled. You are now there. But you realize that this is a ZANU-PF program. Certainly, you can raise a point of order, you can walk out, you can challenge the program. And that's what we expected our councillors to do. But also, let's not lose sight of the wrongs of ZANU-PF in blaming our councillors. What happened was wrong. But also, to coerce people on the basis of the very same threats that our MPs were coerced is also wrong. ZANU-PF must not be in the habit of, you know, using threats and, you know, sticks to.
So are you saying these councillors attended because they were being threatened?
Absolutely.
What were the threats?
They were threatened with suspensions. They were threatened with recalls.
But wouldn't one stand on their principle? Is it not better for one to stand for their principle and get suspended as opposed to
100%.
attending? Yes.
100%. And that's our view. But I'm saying, in addition to that, the minister or whoever are using or abusing their power to threaten deployees are also wrong. They have to be called out as well. You know, say, how do you impose a political ideology of your party on people who are not interested in your party? I spoke about the right.
It curtails freedom of association.
Yes, I spoke about the right to choose. People must be allowed to choose what they want. If people choose to be opposition, let them be. If there is an opposition and you say a multi-party democracy, why would you impose your ideology on them? Huh? What kind of behavior is that? So both parties need to be called out, and we've called them out. I mean, the government, they could have done a program under the ministry, issued certificates under the ministry.
But they decided to put on the ZANU-PF stamp there.
Yeah, they put on a ZANU-PF stamp on a government program. And it's just the political culture of impunity that we must arrest.
I think maybe it's also important, to speak to the grassroots about these issues, because there is confusion when you see that certificate without this explanation.
Yes.
You are thinking, so our leaders have sold out for a few cents. But as we conclude this program, unfortunately we have run out of time. I want to talk to you as Promise.
Yes.
When Nelson Chamisa quit the party, how did that make you feel?
Well, it was a heartbreaking moment, for not just for me, for the country, and we all knew that here is a person that we also crisscrossing the country, campaigning, sleepless nights, going everywhere, facing roadblocks, facing bullets, facing everything. And he's robbed of his victory. And as if that is not enough, they want to take away his political party. So it was heartbreaking. The wrongness of ZANU-PF was laid out for everyone to see that we're dealing with cannibalistic individuals. We're not interested in democrats. We're only interested in their own political power. And but nonetheless, when he quit, it also, created that new space where he's operating from, And we continue as his lieutenants to galvanize the base, to re-energize the citizens, and to keep giving our people hope. And that will not change.
And where is he operating from? You brought it up.
He's operating from where he's operating from.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'd like to thank you very much for giving us an opportunity to talk to you today.
Thank you very much. It was a very good conversation.
So there you have it, viewers. That was the CCC, Citizens Coalition for Change spokesperson, Promise Mkwananzi, and he says there's no faction. The only legitimate party is the one he represents as spokesperson, the one that was formed and led by Advocate Nelson Chamisa before he left. Whatever other CCC that exists is illegitimate. So thank you very much for joining us. Until next time, my name is Lynette Manzini. Goodbye.
This is Open Parley Live. This is Open Parley Live.